Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of the Dispatch. Things have changed a little bit. We are now the MEMA Heavy Duty Dispatch. I'm Collin Shaw, Chief Commercial Vehicle Officer at MEMA, and I'm here with Ann Wilson. Ann is the head of our DC office, and we wanted to give a little bit of a brief overview and introduction to our legislative summit coming up on April 26th and 27th. So, Ann, can you give us a little bit of an overview of the legislative summit?
Sure, Colin, glad to do it, and so glad to be able to participate in this conversation. MEMA has held a legislative summit in Washington, D.C. for almost 20 years. It's an opportunity to get our members in front of the elected members of Congress, as well as key members of any administration. Obviously, during COVID, we had to sort of change the format of the summit, couldn't meet in person, but Congress is open again. Washington is open. And they're open for meetings, they're open for dialogue. Members of Congress are really looking forward to interacting with their constituents, all of our members. And honestly, so is the administration. They want to know what's going on in the manufacturing world. So April 26th and 27th, I like to say to everybody, this is my time to show off my hometown. But it is also your opportunity to be with other industry members and articulate what's important to you. What on the agenda for public policy makes you tick, makes you worry, something you support, all of those types of issues.
And in the heavy duty world, what are the things that we expect to address at this legislative summit?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One is we know that we are all in a significant transition. And one of the things that I think we're going to want to address is both the impact that fuel efficiency and new emission standards are having on the heavy duty industry, including talking with EPA about what we would want to see. We want to talk about new safety regulations and how that's going to impact the industry, whether it's AEB or automation. I think one of the things that has been particularly troubling to me is when we've talked about automated vehicles, they've always excluded the heavy duty world. Why? Well, the Teamsters are opposed to it. Well, let's give another voice to this to say why automation and testing for automation is important to us overall. I also think that it gives us a chance to talk about general business issues, the R&D tax credit, which is very, very important to many of your members, why we need to reposition it and have it deductible every year like it has been for generations. So those types of issues we will be dealing with. We hope that what we can do is to create a couple of opportunities for the heavy duty members to have a small group meeting with the administration. So that we can go into the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and talk about safety rules, talk about what the new safety rules are going to mean for the heavy vehicle industry, talk about the commitment that each and every one of your companies has to safety, go over to EPA and talk about what this is going to mean as we transition to zero emission vehicles and what that transition is going to look like for the supplier community.
In addition to that, Ann, both you and I represent MEMA at large. We represent all of the vehicle suppliers, so it's not just a heavy duty event. What are some of the bigger other issues outside of the heavy duty world that we'll also cover at the legislative summit?
Well, the entire aftermarket, whether it's light vehicle or heavy vehicle, is really going to be focusing in on Congress on the repair access issue. So if you are in the aftermarket, in the heavy duty arena, we are going to have you in front of members of the House of Representatives with other aftermarket members pushing for their support of the repair access bill. There's that issue. In addition, as we all know, Congress last year, the president signed $400 billion worth of investment for new environmental projects for, that road to zero emission vehicles that we all know about. We're going to have some people in front of us talking about how you can access some of that money. And finally, I think the issue that's keeping many of us up at night is how is this transition, how are we transitioning with China? What does this mean about tariffs? What does it mean about perhaps export controls? We had a really interesting conversation yesterday, the staff did, with one of the members of the House Select Committee on China. Let's talk to some of those. They're your elected representatives about what's important to us with regards to our relationship with China, our commercial relationship, as well as our security relationship. We have already invited an expert on China policy and on trade policy to be our speaker during the general session. And I think if she can participate, it will give us all a very, very good overview of how we got here and what we might see in the future.
Well, and I think I speak for everybody. Nobody can match your passion for Washington, D.C. and the issue. So look forward to being with you. Again, I'm Collin Shaw. I've been with Ann Wilson here, and this is the latest episode of MEMA's Heavy Duty Dispatch. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.